of like John Cusack's haircuts do in his movies often.
Wait, you just said he looks like John Cusack?
Just his haircut.
Yeah, you do. You're looking a little Keanu Reeves there. Not gonna lie about it.
Just how it grows.
Right.
That's just how it grows. As hair tends to do, right?
I cut it in May, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna cut it. That's like $12. I ain't spending that.
Man, yeah. I mean, you could probably buy a couple of Vita games for that or something.
Man, I wish haircuts were $12. What are you talking about?
I know, man. Up here, it's like at least 18 or so, and I usually just end up giving them a 20. Actually, I got my hair cut while I was on vacation, and it was only $10 there, but I took a 20 in with me because I'm used to just doing this. So I was just like, here.
Man, are you ever gonna get like a non-military looking haircut? Or
Nah, probably never.
You're like the exact opposite of me, because like there are two things that happens when you get out of the military. You either keep getting a high and tight for the rest of your life, or you just let it grow and turn into a hippie.
Yep. Nah, I think it's that in-between stage where it's just kind of like a really thick fro that I never can get myself over that hump to like having long hair, so it's just like I get annoyed and cut it all off.
See, Josh's really odd fro comes after the intermediate phase, and then it flattens on top and does this.
Wait, so
hilarious
basically you're saying that you look like Cusack and he looks like Carrot Top?
Yes, Josh has the carrot top hair. He goes it out and does this, and then falls. And the best part, Paul was over at one Christmas, and he's like, he sees Josh with his hair like that, and he's like, ha, nice, and grabs it to pull it off.
No, he said nice wig.
Nice wig.
That's hilarious.
Looks like we're
Oh,
live.
man. Well, I guess we should go ahead and start the show. So I'm here with John Cusack and Carrot Top, and this is the World Map Podcast. We are live for episode 17. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, and joining me for real is everybody's favorite Carrot Top lookalike, Clark, whatever your name is, Mr. Carrot Top Hair.
That's me.
What's up? How's it going, man? You're
Going
excited,
good.
right? You just picked up a new MacBook?
MacBook Pro.
Nice. That's the one the pros use.
I know, that's what I hear. Yeah, so it's going to take about 7 hours to transfer all my data from my old computer, or my Time Machine backup, which is lovely. New thing I don't like about new computers is they're too thin to use all my legacy cables.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how they get you to buy new cables.
I refuse.
Or just, or I guess just use up all of your bandwidth to transfer the data. Also joining us, as usual, your other host, John Cusack, a.k.a. Nick.
It's me.
I'm not seeing the Cusack as much as I am Keanu Reeves.
It was in one movie. I don't remember which movie.
Got it.
His hair looks just like that.
I kind of want to do some of those, like, dumbfounded Keanu memes, but use Nick's face.
You can get our other brother on there. You remember those pictures he would make where he'd take like my face and put it on everybody in the picture?
Yeah, those are so creepy, man. I don't know if I approve of that. Oh man. Well, I guess we've introduced ourselves. We should probably introduce the show for any new listeners. We got some live viewers, so be sure to submit your questions and comments during the show. We've got the Q&A panel up there. For those of you who might be new listeners, the World Map Podcast is your weekly dose of everything in the world that could be on the map in terms of video games, movies, TV shows, entertainment news, tech, all that fun stuff, and we come and deliver all that great nerdery to you each week here on the World Map Podcast. So let's go ahead and get started with what's always our first segment, where we talk about what we've been playing in terms of gaming this week in a little section we call the backlog. And you guys have both been playing a game that I played quite a while back. So maybe I'll let you guys kick us off on that, talking about that game, because it's one that I certainly love, near and dear to my heart, and that game is Shovel Knight.
Oh, well, I, like you, have played it. I played it a while back as well. I just ever since that
Same
announcement.
here.
Okay, so you guys are just revisiting Shovel Knight, then.
Yeah, some recent news made me want to get back into the game. Is all.
Sure.
That's exactly how I feel. They brought up that that news about the Plague of Shadows coming out sometime this fall, and it's playable at PAX East, but I'm not at PAX East, so I had to settle for the already existing content. So I decided to go back and play my way through some of that.
Yeah, I mean, the Plague of Shadows coming out is going to feature one of the villains from the original Shovel Knight, Plague Knight, and you're going to get to play as him in this new DLC, which, as I understand it, this is going to be free content, free DLC for everybody who already owns the game.
Does that matter what platform?
I think it's all platforms.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, so that's going to be. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely going to jump back in. I got it. The first thing it came out on was 3DS, so I have it through the eShop, and I've still got it installed on my 3DS. So I'll certainly, I kind of want to download it on the Vita and play through it again in preparation for this DLC, and then play the DLC on the Vita, just because I feel like the Vita is just a little easier to control a platformer on. Plus, I'd get trophies out of it. So I don't know if I want to buy the game a second time, but I'm leaning towards it.
Yeah, I ended up getting it on the Wii U just because. I wanted to play it on a bigger screen.
That's what I got it on, the Wii U, because I support Nintendo.
I support Nintendo when they have exclusives.
I support Nintendo since the beginning.
Whatever, you weren't there for the beginning, man.
He was not there.
We were born. We were OG NESers right here.
That's right.
I can't say I went back as far as Game & Watch though.
Man, I'm pretty excited that you can play as Plague Knight though. Actually, Plague Knight tried to tell me a joke, but it was too formulaic. He got no reaction.
Nice. Man,
That's right.
We're gonna get you a Team Dad Joke shirt stat. Man, yeah. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see if Yacht Club Games continues to release DLC for all of the villains in Shovel Knight. I mean, what if there are several of them? The game plays a lot like DuckTales
slash Mega Man.
Yes, DuckTales slash Mega Man slash Super Mario 3. But it's like Mega Man in the way that the villains are really like these different weapon variations, these different like variations on the same theme, right? So you had all these like Cutman and I don't know, Gooseman and like all these freaking weird. I mean, it probably was in there by the time they got through all the Mega Man games. They had some weird ones in there.
Well, there was never a Gooseman.
There was the Pedal Man with the flower around his head.
There wasn't a Gooseman, but I bet you there was an Iceman. And the robots were all called Mavericks. Is there some kind of Top Gun conspiracy in Mega Man that we just uncovered?
Whoa, you're mixing up series here. Okay, Mega Man and Mega Man.
Okay, Mega Man X, right, with the Maverick. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
You just offended probably about half of everybody that's a Mega Man fan right
hey,
now.
I will be the first to say that the X...
Robot Masters. There's the difference.
I'll be the first to say the X series is better than the original Mega Man. I am a huge Mega Man X fan.
That's a debatable topic right there.
That could be an entire episode in and of itself.
I don't even know how we get on these like debates when there's nothing in the show notes about Mega Man.
I'll tell you how we get on them. When me being a huge Mega Man fan and you're calling them Mavericks or the original series, saying X is better than the Mega Man.
I love Mega Man X. I mean, those Super Nintendo and PS1 like Mega Man X games.
But when you're comparing X to the original Mega Man, you got to compare the whole series. And X happens to have X7 in it, which just brings it way down.
I'll give you that.
Down.
Hey, maybe Mighty Number 9 will be the Mega Man game to rule them all, even though it's not a Mega Man game.
It's not as good as Mega Man, in my opinion, but it is fantastic because I was a beta tester because I dumped too much money to get that game early. Just for them to push it back. Though this is a little more off topic. As a backer of Mighty Number 9, I apparently get a trial that comes out the day the game was supposed to come out. So I get 4 of the levels complete with the cutscenes and everything, along with some other little modes and everything too. So I get half the game on the day that they gives me the game.
Hey, that's not a bad deal. Maybe you can stream some of that, and make some of your money back.
Nice.
Yeah. So I mean, so Shovel Knight, the villains follow that Mega Man formula where like they were all variations of some kind of feature to a robot, whereas these are all different knights that you're fighting, and they each have a unique variation to them. I doubt that if they release content for all of these characters, that it's always going to be free DLC. It seems like that would just be kind of put them in the hole a little bit, but maybe this free Plague Knight DLC is a tease for like the DLC that comes next, or maybe even for a Shovel Knight 2. But yeah, this game is if you haven't played it, get on it because it came out on 3DS, but it's on every platform now. I mean,
Seriously.
you can play it on PC, you can play it on Vita, PS4. It's out there everywhere.
Using a shovel as a weapon? I mean, what a groundbreaking idea.
Um, there are plenty of murderers who would disagree with you. But yes, you indeed, yeah. That's like your fourth joke there. I wish I had my soundboard up on my iPhone so I could just play the rim shots.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about Shovel Knight, you kind of have to throw a few in there.
That is indeed true, sir. So what is this? What's this other web game? You played a lot of Advance Wars on on Virtual Console. Paul had played it previously on the web version that since got shut down, but you've been playing the web version of another game, and I think practicing your hand at a little diplomacy.
Yes, indeed. Actually, it is not a web version of any kind of console game like Paul likes to do, but rather it's the web version of a board game. The board game being named Diplomacy, and it's set in Europe before the beginning of World War I, actually, and it's played by up to 7 players, and it's interesting because you're trying to take over the world, or at least Europe, which I guess Europeans thought of as the world a long time ago. And so it's like Risk in that respect. And you have armies, and the amount of armies you have depend on the amount of territories you control. But it's different because everybody's turn happens simultaneously, and there's no dice. Instead, there is a round where you communicate with each of the other powers or the countries, and that's why it's called diplomacy. You're making deals with some of them to invade certain other countries or agreeing not to invade each other, etc. And then when the turn plays out, you actually see, what happened, whether alliances were formed, whether they're not, whether something you said you wouldn't do happened or not. And so there's a huge amount of strategy in that game in terms of how best to lie and how best to take advantage of the uncertainty that other players will have in terms of how they're dealing with each other. And in that strategic element and the level of deceit and everything that you need in order to play the game is actually really, really fun. And for a lot of people that are our age, we have jobs now, so we can't just spend hours playing a game all at once, or a board game or video game. So what's great about this is it's the turns are set to a certain clock. That way, for example, you can set it to 24 hours, so as long as you put your moves in and do all your communicating within that 24-hour period, then you're good to go, and it will just play out over a few months. So
Wow.
It's very fun, very interesting. Actually, we should probably try to get a game on. And
Yeah.
what makes it more fun is whenever you set it up with a group of people, but nobody knows who is what country, and so you don't even know who they are. And I was actually I was playing as Germany, and I got crushed. I formed an alliance with Russia, but at the same time, I also formed an alliance with just about every other country around me. As it turns out, they were doing the same thing. And at one point, I told Russia that I was doing something with them, and I was moving into Italy, and Russia kind of helped me, but I didn't help them. And so I was able to steal a little bit of Russian territory. That did not bode well for me, because then he started putting on the group message board so everybody can see asking if I've made any deals with them and pretty much telling them exactly what I said to him, verbatim. So there's a lot of backstabbing in there. And then I remember at another point I decided to tell Italy that I was going. I took some of the language North Korea uses when talking about South Korea and the United States, and told them I was going to turn their lands into a sea of fire.
That doesn't strike me as that diplomatic.
Well, no, it's really a lot of cutthroat and backstabbing. It's pre-World War I era diplomacy,
Fair enough.
I don't know. I think it'd be fun to try out.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So is this a free-to-play browser?
Yeah,
it's free
game? It's free to play. You play it right there on the web. You just use the little message boxes inside of the website. In your game, you can have a few different games running. It takes not much time commitment at all. If you want the game to go by faster, but once everybody puts their move in, even if it's set, say, on a 24-hour clock, it'll happen right away, and then the new 24 hours will start later. So
nice. So yes. How do you add new human players to the game? You just invite them via an email address, or?
Yeah, you could invite via email, or if somebody's already signed up, you can just have invites sent out to the users. Actually, I will give you all a link to it by the end of the day.
Awesome. Let's do it. Yeah, well, we can perhaps talk about our diplomatic exploits on the show. That sounds like a lot of fun. So that's a little bit of combination tabletop/video game right there, blurring the lines.
Indeed.
That's awesome. So Nick, you talked last week, I think, about the new Splatoon mode. How's that going for you? Have you played any more of that this week?
Well, last week I didn't talk about the new Splatoon mode. I mentioned more about the weapons.
Right.
And Nintendo still have this nice idea where you can't pick the mode you want. Ranked mode has 3 separate modes, but they're on some kind of rotation. So this set of 3 hours, maybe this mode, while the next set is another mode. So I actually didn't get to play it last week, but I turned it on this week because one of my friends just like, hey, let's play together, because they added the ability to play with friends on ranked mode. And when you know it, it's on the mode I hadn't got to play, which was fantastic. So I got to try it out finally. Yeah, it's a new mode called Rainmaker, and it's probably my least favorite mode.
All that work for nothing.
Well, it's all right. I just like the territories mode. It seems more strategic. This mode, essentially, from what I can gather, there's this thing they call the Rainmaker in the middle of the map, and you got to run and grab it, and it's basically a bazooka. So you get this like giant ink tornado bazooka that just like does destruction in its path, but you can't fast travel or move real fast with it, and you basically have to carry it from the center of the map to the enemy base. And that's it. You win if you get there. But if you have the Rainmaker, everybody kind of sees where you are. They see all the tornadoes. They see the path of destruction, and so you just get annihilated. They just come at you like a hurricane. And so it just kind of turned into a big battle royale around this Rainmaker. The matches I played, not a single match ended due to completion. Every match ended due to time running out because nobody could hold on to that stupid Rainmaker for more than 20 seconds because everybody would just like congregate at one section and just start unloading on each other. So everybody would die and then just run back there and die and just nonstop for about 3 minutes. Wow. Every match.
Well, you've painted quite a good picture of that new mode there. Yeah, it sounds kind of like a reverse capture the flag, because you're trying to grab something and take it into the enemy base as opposed to stealing it and taking it to your base.
Like that bomb mode.
Yeah, it's a reverse neutral flag basically, except the flag is also a destruction device that shoots projectiles.
It's an interesting idea, but yeah, I can see how maybe not all that easily executed unless you had perhaps a team of players together who all kind of are coordinating over voice chat or something. Then maybe they could kind of flank you as you're trying to run with it or something. But I imagine just with playing with randos or whatever, it would just be chaos.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, if you have the game now, so if you ever wanted to try it, I've got another friend. We can build a team and Skype it, and that would probably make it a bit more enjoyable for that type of mode.
Sounds awesome. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do some diplomacy. Let's play through some Shovel Knight again. Let's do all this stuff. I don't know where I'm going to find time to do all this stuff. But you actually found time, Nick, to play something that I don't think we've talked about on the show before that I find really interesting, and I was actually a game I was very interested in when it came out, and then it just I completely forgot it existed until you put it in the show notes, and that's The Wonderful 101.
Well, it's a wonderful game.
Man, the jokes, they don't get better.
I bet you can probably think of at least 100, maybe 101 reasons why it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wonderful 101. I actually purchased that game when it came out. I just, it was one of them games that came out in the mix of a ton of other games that I wanted to play, and so I played a chunk of it.
Whoa, wait. I just noticed behind you. You have a Mega Man X6 poster behind you on the wall, and you were talking about how you're such a big original series.
No, I like them both.
No, it's right there. Where's your? So show me where your original Mega Man poster is. No, you got the X poster in your room. Don't even be trying to talk down to me because I like Mega Man X.
Whoa. This is the living room, all right? I saved the good stuff for the bedroom.
That's what she said. Okay, I'm sorry. Wonderful 101. Go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, it was one of them games. You know how you want a bunch of games, you get a bunch of games at once, and so sometimes you don't finish games. Wonderful 101 was one of them games. And I just had some downtime and looked at it on my shelf. I was like, hey, I've never finished that. I think I should pop it back in. And so
That's also what she said. Keep going.
But
have you been watching The Office lately?
I haven't watched The Office in years, but he's just like setting them up. I gotta knock him down.
Oh man, but anywho, so playing this game, I'll just go ahead and explain how it works because I'm assuming neither one of you have played it, and
Whoa,
I know
I have the game too, buddy.
Do you?
Yeah, Club Nintendo free
Whoa,
download.
you're not allowed to say you have it without pulling it right off the shelf.
It was.
There it is. There's your one episode
You'll see it in
shelf
a
pull.
Are we just waiting for a?
No. I don't have a physical copy.
I was waiting for the big
Oh,
moment.
you have a digital copy. I see.
No, but anywho, the game is a very hard game to kind of explain. It's kind of like Pikmin on crack meets superhero meets comic book. It's a weird game, but
Wait, so who met who first?
I think the Pikmin met crack, and then
Oh, okay, all right.
there was so I kind of get like Beautiful Joe vibes off this to throw back to like GameCube era here, but
it has a Beautiful Joe kind of look to the general cutscene and character design, but the gameplay couldn't be far from it, like further from it. It's so different you can't even compare the two. It has a top-down kind of view, and you control a mob of people, a bunch of little people, kind of like in Pikmin, and you just kind of run around with them collecting more people as you go through the level. Hence, the 100, 101. You normally get a cap of 100 people per level, and you're the one. You, the player, are that extra one. But the Wonderful 101 actually, it means there's 101 special people in the game, like people with different powers. There's a sword guy, you have giant fist, the fist of doom, I like to call it. You have like a whip. There's multiple different heroes, and whichever front runner you put, he controls the mob, and the mob can transform into his specialty. So you're just kind of running around with this mob, and it's like, oh, look, a giant robot boss. You pull this one guy out, and you turn the crowd of 100 people into a massive sword and start welling on him. And the really unique thing about this game is the way you can change up the way you fight. You can be battling a guy with the sword, and while you're in it, combo in a switch to this guy that transforms your mob into a gun, and start like doing all these crazy combos by changing up like who's the front leader of the team. There it is. Clark's
There
got
it
it up.
is. Took a bit of time, but there it is.
Nice. I love the art style. For those listening via audio podcast, you can look it up if you haven't heard of this game. But wow, that's some great art in that game. Just so vibrant.
But the gameplay, it's very solid, very tight. You don't need to use the touchscreen to play for those who hate using it. But I will say, if you use the touchscreen, you have to draw the shapes if you use the touchscreen to figure out which one you want, like draw a gun design or a straight line for a sword. You have to draw the shape to change your weapon, basically. And so if you do it by using I think it's the right joystick, to draw your shape, it's slower than if you just dash on the screen and draw a line or a circle or whatever. So I like the touchscreen personally because you can change up your combos a lot quicker. Another cool feature about how the battle works is you can actually break your teams apart, like your mob of 100, separate them into groups of like 20 or 30 or things like that, and actually have like a computer AI-style fighter control that group, and maybe he'll just control the gun and you'll control the sword. But the more people you have, or the less people have, depending on how many people are in your group, depends on how big and strong your weapon is. So if you've got all 100, you have a sword that's like the size of the screen. You swing it slower, but it's super strong. But if you're using like 20 people, your sword might be, just a fifth of the size. Yeah, there's math for you. 20 out of 100. But so it really, you can really break up how you fight and take on each match kind of in your own way. It's a really fun game, and the cutscenes are just kind of real comical. Really, they're not really serious. It's kind of like got a huge joke effect to the game, and a nice comic style. It's a hard game to explain. I would recommend playing it though. I don't know, Clark. Can you explain anything I'm missing any better?
No.
Am I right? It's a kind of a hard game to kind of explain.
Yeah,
it sounds almost like Katamari Damacy with bosses.
I mean, there's a little bit of that, but I don't know. For me,
What?
the
A little bit of
controls.
what? I'm curious.
Well, yeah, it sounds like
Because you have to find
you're like rolling over, like kind of collecting things on a top-down view. It reminds me very much of Katamari.
But you're collecting people in this
Right.
one, though. And but for me, actually, I thought the controls were a little bit hard to get used to. Once I got used to them, it was really fun. But there's I think a learning curve to the getting the controls down so that you can play in a way that I would say is effective.
Certainly. Awesome. We'll have to check that one out. So that's what you guys have been playing this week. I had really good intentions. So I was on vacation the whole last week. Had these great intentions. Man, I'm going to clear so much stuff out of my backlog. I took my PC with me and my Vita and my 3DS. I was like, I'm going to clear all these like awesome handheld games that I have been like backlog stacking up forever because why would I play those when I'm like sitting here with the PS4 or the Wii U or the Xbox One in front of me, and I kind of just like save those games for when I don't feel like lugging consoles around on a trip or something. I did not get through much of my backlog at all because I made the mistake of the first game that I popped in being a JRPG. So I did give Stealth Inc. 2, A Game of Clones, a try on the Vita. It was one of the PS Plus games for August. I enjoyed Stealth Inc. A Clone in the Dark, the original one. It's pretty good game, pretty fun little puzzle game. I enjoyed it, but Stealth Inc. 2 was like, it was basically just more of the exact same, which is fine. They could have probably just like added DLC levels though, and it wasn't like clicking for me because I'm like, I've played this game before. This is gonna take more time to like sit here and figure out these puzzles than I feel like doing right now. Like I want something with some story behind it, something a little more enjoyable. So I popped in Fire Emblem Awakening into my 3DS on the first day of my vacation, and I finally beat it last night, like late last night. I finally beat it. Nick, I know you mentioned before that you had played it. I don't know, had you finished the game, or did you? I think you might have mentioned you borrowed it from someone for a little while.
Yeah, I did finish it. I even went so far as to try lunatic mode, which is just you should never do that to yourself. Though I
Yeah,
have
I mean,
for that mode, but
it's a 40 plus hour game. I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
Um,
it's JRPG through and through.
yeah. Are you playing it with the? Are you playing it such that when a character dies, they're permanently dead, or are you?
Yes, so that I turned permadeath on,
Nice.
which
That's
which
how it always should be
which is
played.
how I mean, yeah, that's how Fire Emblem is meant to be played. Same
are
thing with
you
like
restarting
XCOM.
after somebody dies, or are you legitimately
I,
coping
le-
with
I
the death?
legitimately played the game with permadeath, and if somebody died, especially for the completionist in me who wanted to see like all the little story elements that each of those characters added if they're still in your party, it was really rough on me to do that, but like it hurt every
I have
time.
one question. Did Frederick die?
Dude, Frederick. So I had Frederick until the final battle. The final battle. But his defense is so low. Like he is just so sucky. Like most of the time, you know, I had him leveled to like an 18 Great Knight, which those classes top out at 30, I guess. Um, so he wasn't leveling very fast because I had to like hold him back. But he develops relationships with the other customers, the other characters really well.
Frederick
So he's a good support character.
Frederick was like most OP character in the game. What are you talking about?
Not in my playthrough. I don't know why, but he was not at all good for me.
He's so overpowered that the only way to beat the first few chapters of Lunatic Mode is to send only Frederick in because everyone else dies.
Man, maybe I like evolved him because you can change classes and like do your master seal at a certain point. I must have played him in a completely different play style than most people because I actually had Sully, who also is the same class. I actually had Sully like way more powerful than Frederick, and ended up using him as just a support class because he did have like an A level relationship with most of my other characters by the end, so he was good to like pair with them so that he added some extra like evasion and extra striking ability to those characters. But no, my most powerful OP character was Virion in the entire game, who's the archer, and then I later used the Master Seal to turn him into a sniper, um, and gave him like a longbow so he could attack from 3 spaces away. And yeah, he was OP. I could just run in like and sit right outside the enemy's attack range with him and Robin and just like throw fireballs and arrows at them and take a lot of them out. So I don't know, man. Yeah, it's a brutal game though. I played, I lost several characters, and then that meant I had to do a lot of grinding. I think that I went back and looked at what wrote down as my favorite games of 2013. That's the year this came out. And I had Castlevania Lords of Shadow Mirror Fate on the 3DS on there. I had Gears of War Judgment. I had Zelda A Link Between Worlds. Hotline Miami, the original one, came out that year. And then Tomb Raider came out that year as well. And I would probably move Fire Emblem up somewhere around the 2 or 3 mark there, probably just below Tomb Raider. I really thought it was that good. It is such a the way that like just things play out differently based on your decision making in the game, the strategy required. But here's what got me was like kind of mid game. I felt less like it mattered what strategy I was using going into the fights, and it mattered more if I had grinded enough. And that's a problem in a lot of JRPGs. But
Right.
I felt like I had to go back and I had to do like a lot of those things where you make enemies spawn or you go use the spot pass features to get like enemy like mirror match teams to spawn and that kind of thing, which is cool. They have a lot of great content in there. They have like characters from all the older Fire Emblem games who you can make spawn on the map and you can go and fight those classic teams with your team for experience points. So it was kind of fun, but I felt at about mid game point. I think there are 25, 26 chapters, I guess, counting the last chapter. I probably somewhere around like chapter 19, I would say the game gets really grindy, and so I was like really super high on it, like loving it a lot. But it kind of took it down just a notch for me because I had to go and do so much grinding to get leveled up enough to go through the last levels. But I thought it was fun. Nick, who did you let land the final blow on Grima? just I guess it's not too spoilery to say that. Also, this game is a few years old, but you can skip ahead if you don't want to hear the next like 15 seconds of spoilers. But who landed the final blow for you?
I let my main character land it.
Robin?
Yeah.
Nice,
Actually,
okay.
my main character's name was Statches. All right.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I did the same thing, which is really, so when I got to that final boss, it basically is like you can either let Crom land the final blow, and it'll put the final boss back to sleep for 1,000 years or whatever, or if you let Robin land the final blow, you'll like defeat the evil dragon guy like forever. The kingdom will never have to worry about him again. Which added this really cool decision at the end, because Robin like is not strong enough. Like the main final boss is completely resistant to the type of attacks that, or at least in my game, like I had a Grandmaster fully leveled, maxed out, and none of the magic that I could throw at him did more than 3 damage. So I had to like run up and sacrifice a few characters in the final battle to like get the final boss down to below 3 HP so that I could bring Robin in to deliver that final blow. But it was kind of like rewarding to have to do that. And there are some cool things in this game where it's not just your traditional like Final Fantasy Tactics where there's like, here's the army on the left side, here's the army on the right side, and like go fight each other. The scenarios are a little different where like some of them you might be like fighting up a mountain to get to the enemies at the top, and then all of a sudden they'll call in reinforcements and you'll have guys coming up behind you. And so then you can't play as defensively, you can't play as carefully, you have to really like push forward faster, and even though maybe you're not able to kill every enemy on your way up the hill, you have to like kind of pass some of them by to outrun the larger horde and survive. So you have to make a lot of really unique decisions there. But just the whole like RPG system is so well done there. You know, everything from the weapons, and you can forge the weapons. The weapons have durability to them that eventually runs out. For the most, some of them don't. Most of them do. You have like you can, when you get a character to level 10, you can change that character to a different class, or you can evolve them to a master class, which then can level up to I think 30. Just lots and lots of like variation and ways to go about playing this game, which I really like. And the story, I don't know what you thought, Nick, but I thought the story, I've actually, this is surprising probably, but I've never played a Fire Emblem game until this. And I thought the story, though, was really, really cool, and how they tied in some of the older Fire Emblem lore and brought some stuff from the future. There's like all this time travel element. I thought it was just awesome.
Oh yeah, and I mean the story in itself too. The way the game starts out,
Yes.
like the way it starts out, just it grabs you and makes you want to know what's going on here. And
yeah,
so
and it totally, by the end of it, was not what I thought was going on.
oh yeah.
There's this whole thing with, is this guy a clone, or like what's going on, and just all this time travel. And it was cool to see all these characters that I actually, because I played a ton of JRPGs, but just for some reason never a Fire Emblem game never came my way. But it was cool to see these characters that I knew from Smash Bros. So Lucina and Crom and Marth and like all these guys from Smash Bros. All of a sudden I'm playing as them in this strategy, tactical turn-based RPG. So
it's actually funny you mentioned Smash Bros. Knowing these characters, because I'm the same way. This is the first Fire Emblem game I've really actually played. And back to the statement of who I got to get the final hit on the main boss. The reason I didn't pick Crom is because the reveal trailer for Robin in Smash Bros. Had Crom looking like a total loser. And so that's what went through my head at that moment. I was like, I don't need this loser killing the boss. I'm going to have one of the characters that actually made it into Smash Bros. Take him down. But that's just a little reason why I even picked Statches. Not Robin, Statches.
Yeah, you can name your main character. I just stuck with Robin because I was like, that's fine. And, I'm the same way with Zelda. I always stick with Link. I never name Link anything but Link, even though you can always name.
I'm the same way, but I borrowed the game, so I don't have to look at it anymore. Just my friends are like, who the heck is Statches? That's what I hope from the reaction. I don't know the reaction, but I hope they open it up. Who the heck is Statches? Who is this? What is this?
So, based on your experience with this Fire Emblem game, does that mean you're gonna start playing them now, like when Fire Emblem Fates comes out?
Oh yeah.
I'm getting Fates.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm all over it. And I it's funny, the other game that I thought I would have time to beat, or at least start on vacation, that's still in the plastic for PS Vita, is Disgaea 5, which I think is the same kind of game. So I'm in for some more torture here, but man, I love these like tactics based RPGs.
Yeah.
Kind of on the, and they're great because they're like on this grid system, and you can see like, okay, that enemy can attack out to this point. Do I want to move inside and like lure the enemy in and then like set up a good defense, or do I want to sit just outside of it and wait for the enemy to see if they'll come to me, and then I can go in and get the first strike? And there are just all these cool decisions. Fire Emblem also has this great like relationship system in there where the more that you use two characters to fight side by side, they develop a relationship. There are conversations you can have in the barracks in between battles that also develop relationships between characters, and so the stronger that a relationship between two characters is, the better they fight together. And so that starts factoring into your decision making, like, okay, do I want these two really strong characters spread apart on the map so that I have kind of a really strong support unit for these two teams that I need to move and do two different objectives, or do I want to keep them together so I have this powerhouse combo? A lot of cool stuff. I really, really highly recommend the game.
Question with that characters getting together one. Who's that one? The one girl that keeps tripping over her boots. That's like in love with Chrome.
That's Sumiya. Yeah, she died like 2 battles in. She was not around very long.
Okay, I wasn't sure because it's kind of funny. If you don't put her and Crom together, she has like the same comment for every character you stick her with. She's like, "Well, I guess this is pretty good. You're no Crom, but always mention."
Yeah. She's a funny character. I was kind of sad that she died early on in my playthrough because like every time she would walk in Crom's eyesight or whatever, she'd kind of like get embarrassed and like trip over herself and be like, "Oh, it's my boots. They're too big," or what. Like, but she was just like this awkward, like love-stricken character in the game. But yeah, it was cool. And then to see like eventually Crom. And who he does end up with is the queen kind of thing, and then like their children and the whole time travel thing with their children, and just, man, good game. So I guess we should probably move on. Talked about a lot of good games. For our, you guys are still working on your top 10 lists, so if you guys listening to the podcast are interested in hearing what our top 10 games of all time are, I shared my opinion on those few episodes back, so you can go dig that out, and Clark and Nick are working on theirs. But this week we're going to have an interview in the audio podcast with Jared Gingrich, who is the lead at Imagination Vent, which is the studio behind a little game called Indie Assault. So I won't talk too much about it here because it's all in the interview, but Indie Assault is essentially a platformer type fighting game, in the style of Super Smash Bros. That we got to see at SmashCon. We saw their booth set up, but they actually had to leave before we had a chance to talk to them. So we got a good interview earlier this week with Jared over at Imagination Vent, and learned all about what is Indie Assault, how's it different from Smash, and what are they really doing that's a fun collaboration with the indie dev community to make this game. So if you're listening live right now, go download the audio podcast later on once it's posted, and you'll get to hear that interview. If you're listening to the audio podcast, you will hear that interview now. And that was the interview with Jared. And so I think next we'll call in the news motorcycle. What do you guys say?
Sounds good.
Yeah, why not?
All right, so we already talked a little bit about Shovel Knight on the show, and in addition to that DLC we talked about, also some Shovel Knight amiibo announced. What exactly does that mean?
Well, Shovel Knight announced there was an actual rumor. I've been following this, where Shovel Knight was rumored to be the new character in Smash, and because there was like a leak of amiibo, so I was actually pretty excited about that, but. That wasn't the case, apparently. He may still be, but they announced during PAX East that Shovel Knight is getting its own amiibo, and this amiibo is supposed to unlock new modes, such as a co-op, two-player mode, and like a special challenge mode too, where you like do all these unique challenges in the game Shovel Knight with a bunch of new customization options, like new artifacts and abilities. And there's not been a bunch of information on what these things are, but I think it's kind of cool that that they're coming out with an amiibo for some of these little indie games. That the amiibo isn't just like you scan them in and oh look, here's a computer thing. No, that it's like a cool little action figure. It gives you a bunch of new modes. I think it looks pretty sweet, and I'm pretty excited for it. Not on that topic though. The Shovel Knight amiibo itself brought in some news about Nintendo. They've apparently announced they're allowing like other companies and developers to manufacture amiibo for their games. Like Yacht Club, Yacht Club Games isn't Nintendo, but they're the ones actually manufacturing and developing this amiibo with permission from Nintendo, and so Nintendo's actually open to allowing some of these other companies and things to make amiibo for their game, which I think is pretty good and pretty cool.
And I think that's also very good for Nintendo too, because we've found that the amiibo has been something that's been making them money, and by allowing third-party companies to manufacture their own amiibo, it's also opening up a new revenue stream for those companies on Nintendo systems, which might encourage more developers to start developing on Nintendo systems as well. So I think that's a pretty good thing there.
Yeah, agreed. There's certainly a little bit of a gray line there, though, because there are some third parties who have tried to do some amiibo-related manufacturing that Nintendo has shut down, or at least they haven't been happy about. I don't know if you guys have seen. I've seen on the internet a couple of sort of amiibo emulators in a way, if you will, where there are these products that essentially trick the Nintendo system into thinking there is an amiibo there, and so people can like program like 20 amiibo onto this one thing with the various stats and trick the system, which is a little like almost kind of pirating. So I can see why Nintendo's not on board.
Well, that kind of is piracy, because they have to have it has to be programmed a certain way, and it's essentially software piracy right there. So it's the only difference is, unlike with disk-based software or something where they can encrypt it in a certain, or where it is set up in a certain way such that it has to, I'm trying to think the best way of saying this, certain description keys that the system has to run the game, I don't think they actually have that in the amiibo functionality, so it's basically ripe for piracy right there. I don't see how they can stop that.
It's almost less like an optical medium that's going to be scanned in or something like that, and more like
there's no DRM.
It's almost like a USB drive almost, that's being plugged in and read.
Yeah, there's no digital rights management or content management in the amiibo system itself. So it's just something really basic with a little bit of data.
It's almost like kind of scanning a barcode.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how they're going to stop that, but I mean, of course, they'll do what they have been doing and shutting down different companies or producers of these things on an individual basis, like they do with people who make other things that use their IP, but it's not something that they could do on a massive scale, I'd say.
Not fix. Which with the Shovel Knight amiibo, that's something that we were talking earlier about how Shovel Knight's on all the systems now. I wonder how. Are the other systems going to get like a paid DLC to add some of these new modes, or is this going to be a Nintendo exclusive kind of deal? Because you can't really scan an amiibo into your Vita.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe they'll strike up a deal with the Skylanders or the Disney Infinity people.
Right.
I would say though, it seems like Yacht Club Games is certainly has a sweet spot. For Nintendo, though, I mean, they released Shovel Knight first on Nintendo platforms, so there must be Nintendo fans, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them make some of this content exclusive.
Right. I mean, I know they have had exclusive content on other systems, like I believe on the PlayStation 3 version of Shovel Knight, there's a mode in there such that you can actually play in Battletoads levels,
Yeah, I think that might have been on the Xbox version, and I think on PS4, if I remember correctly, they added Kratos.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this isn't the only thing though that Nintendo is seemingly becoming more open about. I don't know. Did you guys see the interview? Nintendo kind of mentioned in its one of its more recent earnings calls that it was going to be exploring licensing its IP across some different kind of creative media. And then Shigeru Miyamoto talked with Fortune. There was a quote in Fortune magazine. Nintendo is apparently very carefully considering how it might get back into allowing its characters to appear, outside of video games. Obviously, we were all well aware of the monstrosity that was the Super Mario Brothers movie, and turn Nintendo off forever. Although, it's one of those things now that I like to go back and watch just because it's hilarious.
Honestly, is that movie that much worse than a lot of the late '80s, early '90s Nintendo cartoon shows?
I think it's actually not that bad. It's just so not true to Nintendo or to Mario. It's like, I don't know. It's not quite as bad as it gets a rep for, in comparison to other things that were coming out around that time. But certainly, it turned Nintendo off from participating in letting its characters out for other companies, to make movies about. But we saw Bowser appear in Wreck-It Ralph. Donkey Kong was in the Pixels movie that came out here not too long ago, which was absolutely horrible by all critical accounts.
Fact, that movie I liked less than the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
That movie?
Pixels.
You saw it?
It's not good at all.
Notice he's just saying it's not good. He's not actually admitting to seeing it.
I refuse to admit that.
I don't know. I might need to see this movie just to compare it to the new Fantastic Four, because
the guy that plays Paul Blart is president of the United States, but he doesn't act like president. He acts like Paul Blart.
I think you're talking about Kevin James, but I think what I've learned over the years is that Kevin James is really just a character played by Paul Blart. Yeah, well, and then we had this awesome news a few months ago about Netflix working on a Legend of Zelda series, but Nintendo has denied that up and down, and apparently that's not actually happening. I'm still skeptical that it's not. I still think maybe in the background that could be happening, and maybe it's just wishful thinking. But
all over Netflix.
What do you guys think though? I mean, should Nintendo let its beloved characters out, and should they try their hands at making movies again?
I mean, it works for Disney.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I thought The Legend of Zelda was already on Netflix.
Well, I think it's just that Nick is on Netflix and he plays as The Legend of Zelda from time to time.
Oh.
Sounds right.
Right.
Yeah. So some other news this week coming out of VR Land. What do you guys think about that one?
Oh yeah, I just stumbled across this by accident. I don't even know what I was looking at, but this thing called The Void, this company called The Void popped up, and I was like, that sounds kind of neat. Virtual reality. I wonder what that's about. Apparently, there's this company in Utah is creating this virtual reality theme park, as they call it, but it's not, it's not what it sounds like. Where it's like, oh, I'm gonna put some VR goggles on and pretend I'm on a roller coaster, because that would be just why even do that? No, this place actually looks really cool. It seems like they've built, a big building, and inside of it they have a bunch of three-dimensional objects, walls and panels and pods and stuff that are just basic nothings, just sculptures or figures. You're just kind of looking at it with just the naked eye. Is what is this? Like an unfinished arts and crafts studio? But they have this special VR helmet, chest piece, and gloves and stuff that you put on that kind of puts you in this other world. And so all of this stuff that just without the gear is nothing comes to life. Like these just blank panels or like computer panels, Iron Man style, you're moving around. So basically you actually move and walk around like you're there. and the gear makes it feel like you're there, like the sensors on them and like in the gloves makes it feel, the touch feels real, and it's a really unique and weird concept. It's claims it's like stepping inside of a video game, and I don't know, it's looking pretty cool. I don't know if any of you have even looked it up or heard of it before, but I would recommend just glancing at it. They have this website and this good like two or so minute video that kind of gets the point across. Slated to open next summer, by the way, or next year, not summer. If anybody's interested.
I feel like we should. I feel like we have to go.
I want to go there right now.
The only problem is Utah, but yeah.
But see, well, think about it. Actually, Utah is the perfect place for something like this because when you're there, you really would want to act like you're somewhere else, right?
You have such a great point there. No offense to any of our fans in Utah when you get internet 10 years from now. So, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, releases Tuesday, September 1st, so that's just right around the corner here in a couple days. Overwhelmingly positive reviews on MGS5. Mostly perfect scores. A couple outlets gave them 9.5 out of 10. And apparently this game is a little more open world and kind of sandbox than the previous Metal Gear games have been, so it's a little more forgiving to those who maybe aren't as good at playing completely stealthily at all times, which I think is fine. I think that's good. You know, choice in games is always welcome, and I think if you want to do the stealth playthrough, you can do that, and if you if you do it guns blazing a couple of places, maybe that's fine too. Good little variety. But I don't know. Are you guys Metal Gear Solid fans or Metal Gear fans from way back? I'm not really sure where you guys stand on this, but I know I'm feeling like my backlog's looking like really thick, and so I don't know when I'm gonna get to MGS5, but I'm totally on board and want to play it. I loved Ground Zeroes.
Yeah, I am probably going to skip it. I never was that big of a Metal Gear Solid fan. I liked Part 2 or a bit, and then I really liked Part 1, but I for some reason, if the story is completely nonsensical, I can't get behind the game. It either needs to have a good story or no story, but not something that makes no sense.
I think that's the thing for me is that the story does make sense, and Metal Gear gets a bad rap for like having this nonsensical story. And yeah, there's like the Lule Lale Lo and like all these weird names for things and organizations, and then you have like Liquid Snake, who got his arm on Ocelot, who then became Liquid Ocelot, and like there's all these like weird, like confusing things. But actually, if once you memorize what's happening and what order the games go in, the fact that Metal Gear Solid 3 actually was a completely different character, like that was not Solid Snake in that game, who you had played as in Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, and then it takes place like many years before MGS 1 and 2, like. And the whole like weird transition from Solid Snake going back to Big Boss of this series is like very strange to me. But once you memorize this extremely like lengthy timeline that goes all the way back, by the way, to the original Metal Gear, no Solid on the end of it on the NES, like all of this stuff's interconnected, and it's actually a pretty interesting story about the U.S., Russia, and China. And how they conspired to kind of rule the world together, and everything's just kind of trickled down from that. But all that aside, I don't know if you guys played Ground Zeroes, but just the story and setup that Ground Zeroes made for, which was the kind of prologue, really short prologue game for Metal Gear Solid 5, all the setup in Ground Zeroes to the Phantom Pain. That alone was compelling enough to make me want to play MGS5.
Fair enough.
Did you guys play Ground Zeroes?
I didn't play Ground Zero, so I could really care less about Metal Gear Solid 5.
You gotta go play. Look, even if you don't play Ground Zeroes, go on YouTube and watch like the final cinematic for like when you beat Ground Zeroes. It is one of the like most heart-pounding, amazing like cinematics I have ever seen in a video game. I loved it, and it just got me so pumped up to play MGS5. So maybe that's why I'm so high on it. But
I don't know. Mega Man X4 had a sweet cutscene where cinematic where Zero fought Sigma and was just ripping the crap out of him. Got me excited to watch Mega Man cartoon, and then I turned on that abomination they had back in the day.
True story. True story. I will say, the one of the good things about Metal Gear Solid 5 that I'm hearing is that it's less of a sequel to 1 through 4, and it's more of a direct sequel to Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, which was on PSP and then later part of the Metal Gear Solid HD collection. And Peace Walker probably is the best Metal Gear game. So the fact that this plays so much off of Peace Walker is also kind of a good thing, I think.
Was Peace Walker an actual game? Because the only game I played on the PSP Solid was that card-based one that was...
Oh, no. Peace Walker, I know what you're talking about, but Peace Walker was a full Metal Gear Solid game, has a story to it and everything, and then had this great mechanic where you could actually tie balloons to enemies after you knock them out, and it would float them back to Mother Base, and then you could send your army out on various missions to help build your base and stats up. So it actually added an RPG element to Metal Gear, and it had these cool comic book cutscenes too. So Peace Walker, actually, and it takes place before a lot of the rest of the series. So if you haven't played a Metal Gear game, actually maybe go back to the HD collection and try Peace Walker, because that's a great spot to jump in, especially if you like the idea of adding some RPG elements to a stealth game.
I'm sorry, you said balloons?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, balloon. Yeah, so
I mean, you lost.
Idea.
That doesn't sound very stealthy. If you people are floating on big balloons.
Well, that's the whole thing with Kojima, though. Kojima games and Metal Gear games, they're just so they're so gritty and dark and serious, and they're about politics and they're about war and espionage. But then they just throw this dumb. They don't take themselves seriously. I mean, you had a boss in Metal Gear Solid 2 who was a fat. I think he was literally called Fat Man, and he rollerbladed around the top of a skyscraper while you fought him. Yeah,
I like part 2. So.
That's just Metal Gear. That's why I love it, because it's such a serious good video game, but then it just throws hilarious nonsense in there. Yeah, I think it's actually called the Fulton device or something like that, and that's what you use to tag a balloon on enemies, and it literally it just kind of goes poop, and they float up in the air, and somehow magically that balloon gets them back to your base. I think I read in Metal Gear Solid 5 you can actually do that to goats and bears and all kind, anything you find you can tie a balloon to. And suddenly you guys are on board.
Done.
Yeah.
Sold.
Get behind balloons.
Indeed. So I also saw that the guy who's in charge of marketing for the Pokemon company, J.C. Smith, he was asked on Twitter what we can expect next from the Pokemon franchise, which I think the answer is pretty much always just more Pokemon. But he replied with one word, which was flowers.
Yes.
Tell me how that makes you feel.
I am trying to figure out what that means, because would that mean that the next 2 games, because they come out in pairs always, and he did pluralize it, will be named after flowers of some kind? Or will there be more plant or grass-type Pokemon that are, that look like flowers, like flower Pokemon? Or will there be a new flower type? Or maybe there will be some DLC for the current games in which they give a new flower Pokemon. I mean, I can't really think of what else it can mean other than those. And
yeah, I mean, the only other thing that comes to mind for me is if they're doing a Genova Chen collaboration with the game Flower.
Yeah, I don't know if that would happen though.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll just re-release the game Flower, and you're playing a new type of air type of Pokemon.
Who's just invisible.
Yes.
They could call him Arion, which is probably already some Pokemon name, because let's face it would be hard to make up a name that isn't already a Pokemon at this point.
Yeah. Well, if it were an Arion, it would probably have to evolve from Eevee in some way, right?
Yeah, I think so. So some actually relatively, I think this is big news, but it hasn't really. I don't know. Maybe it just hasn't seemed to get that much play. Although I think there was a pretty decent online ad buy behind it. But Cliff Blazinski, who kind of retired and left Epic Games after like 20 years. He's the guy who's behind, probably most well known for Jazz Jackrabbit, which was,
Great.
in my opinion, a great series and better than Sonic the Hedgehog ever hoped to be. Jazz Jackrabbit, and then of course he's most associated with the Gears of War franchise. He announced last year he was going to come back out of retirement and make video games again, which the guy's probably like in his 30s, and the fact that he was already like able to retire, screw him. But he announced he was coming back, starting his own studio called Boss Key Productions. And then this week they put out not a launch trailer, but a teaser trailer, and announced what their new game is going to be called. Previously known as Project Blue Streak, now the game is officially called Lawbreakers. Not the most exciting name for me. Also, not that exciting to me is the fact that it's going to be a free-to-play first-person shooter on PC. It's going to be a competitive multiplayer game, so maybe, I don't know, maybe they're going for like that Counter-Strike kind of vibe, and he thinks he's going to like take over the competitive multiplayer world with this game. I don't know, yet to be seen. Maybe he will, but I don't know. I was a little disappointed that after Gears of War, being such a great franchise that I've had a lot of fun with. I was kind of hoping he would do something a little different, maybe go back to his roots a little more. He used to do a lot of like point-click adventure games in his early days, and then there was the Jazz Jackrabbit stuff. Even another third-person shooter would maybe excite me more, but just like this, what feels like kind of a vanilla first-person shooter thing that he's making with a story that could have been ripped right out of a Call of Duty game. I don't know. I feel. What you guys excited about this game at all, or
not really?
I've actually never heard of it, but I'm curious. Is Malone going to be in the game? Because codename Blue Streak, and now it's Lawbreakers. It sounds like Malone's business.
Well, probably not. But I think basically the story of the game is that the government blew up the moon, which caused all.
I am now infinitely more intrigued. What the heck is going on?
This is 100% real. This is only in video games that you hear these kinds of stories. The government blew up the moon, and now the gravity on Earth is therefore like a little weird, and so there are these humans who now can kind of like use gravity powers. And so the trailer ends with like, you either obey the law or you break it, and then it's like Lawbreakers. And so I guess I think you're as you're playing the game, it's kind of like Titanfall, where you were either the militia or like the military. I think it's going to be the same thing, where you're either the lawbreakers or the enforcers or whatever they're going to be, and you're just kind of squaring off on whatever maps, but maybe with some unique gravity abilities or something like that. So I don't know. I mean, Cliff Blazinski does great work. I'm sure it'll be fun, but it's just something that I more than likely will skip, because when I hear the words free-to-play first-person shooter, doesn't get me excited.
What does excite me is trying to figure out, where did all the debris from the blown-up moon even go?
So it went onto the Earth, some of it, and caused like this massive earthquake that almost cracked the Earth in half, and then this is like well into the future after humanity has rebuilt.
Wow, and then, I don't know, tides, I mean...
Just go watch the trailer. I cannot. I did not ask Neil deGrasse Tyson to join us on this episode, so he can.
You really should have, because he would have an explanation for all of it.
I'll be sure to tweet at him and at Cliffy B about that. See if we.
I'll go down to the Hayden Planetarium right after this. Crunch some numbers with him.
Nice. There you go. Yeah, there is, however, the game is interestingly enough going to be published though by Nexon. Which I only mentioned because MapleStory.
Yes.
We're going to get some Mesos in there then.
Yeah. It's weird to me that this Korean company is publishing this game, but I don't know. Stranger things have happened, I suppose. Nintendo, after all, exclusively got Bayonetta 2 on the Wii U, so that makes no sense to me. But
Well, I mean, as long as the game got made, right?
As long as the game got made, for sure. So, and then the final thing that we were going to talk about is there's a little mobile game coming out soon, and I probably shouldn't call it a little mobile game. It sounds like it's actually going to be massive. A dungeon crawler RPG by the name of Star Wars Uprising. I'm a
Yeah.
little. After reading, I've played some of the Star Wars licensed mobile games before, and they're all kind of like, you had Tiny Death Star. There was like one other one that was kind of a Farmville clone with a little bit of combat mixed in. One of those where you had to like wait on the timers to cool down, that whole kind of thing. But this is the first one that I've been legitimately like excited about because it sounds like a real game, like an actual game, and it's going to be on mobile called Star Wars Uprising. It looks legit. It's going to be ever evolving. So I think they're going to release 40 levels at the start, and then beyond that, they're going to release more levels as new content becomes available. So there's going to be tie-ins. This first content is going to be sort of a prequel content game for Episode 7, and then they already are talking about planning content that'll work with Rogue One when that comes out. And then also shaping the content based on how the community performs. So I guess if like the Imperials and the Uprising folks are like one's doing better than the other, maybe different things are going to happen in the types of content they release. Sounds like it's going to be a pretty cool thing though. And the other thing that has me excited is they have been authorized to use some of the Legends content, which is the old expanded universe that's no longer canon, but they have said they may be adapting some of that Legends content. So, if I get to see Admiral Thrawn and Dash Rendar and some of those folks show up, that'll be exciting. So I don't know. I feel like this is a legit thing that we might be playing on our mobile devices, though.
It does seem legit. The only thing that would kind of concern me is, if you don't know me, I'm a big fan of buttons, and I usually don't like the controls in mobile games unless it's more of like a board game type game. And so this, because it looks like something that's played in real time, I don't know if I'll be a fan of having my thumb on the screen moving things around, because I don't know, I just don't like that. Personally, I think that games like Fire Emblem, actually Fire Emblem would be a great game on mobile because it's turn-based and there's the grid system and you plan everything out. So I don't know. I'm going to download it and check it out when it comes out, but I am not sure how I'll feel about the controls.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's one of those situations where it's probably going to be way better on iPad and barely playable on iPhone.
That's what happens a lot of the time.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on next and talk about non-gaming in a section called We Have Hobbies. So, as you guys know, I just got back from a little beach vacation, and thought I'd talk about one of the things that I did there. It's not a true hobby of mine because I've only done it a few times. Typically when I'm near the ocean and a large body of water, and that is riding a jet ski. And the main reason that this is so like fun and exciting to me really harkens back to how much I loved Wave Race 64.
We're talking about games now.
Yeah, that's true. I tied gaming into the non-gaming section, but man, there were no ramps to jump off of or anything. But I can confirm that I managed to run the jet ski onto a sandbar and beach it within the first 5 minutes.
Hope you had the insurance.
I did not.
Well.
I don't even know. I guess maybe like I don't know. There's probably like some kind of insurance on them from the rental company, but it was just like, here, you rented a jet ski. Like, here's a map that barely makes sense. Look for the tiny little beacons out in the water that you may or may not see because sometimes they're not still there. And so it's like trying to find and follow these beacons and like take a safe path through the water, and then like next thing I know, I'm just like not moving at all, and I look down and I'm like only in this much water, and there's just this sandbar like out in the middle of the water, and these birds like standing around and like so. But now I know how to they gave this nice safety briefing before taking out, and we're like get off, kind of like just slide it, float it out into waist deep water, and then jump back on, start it back up. You should be good to go. And hey, it worked. It wasn't that bad. so there was that, and then the max speed on those things is 55 miles per hour, which is pretty fast when you're on a tiny little vehicle out in the water, and especially if like a ship goes by and you like kind of hit the ship wake and go flying up into the air. Ton of fun. I not only did I manage to beach it, I managed to. I was sharing. My wife and I were sharing a jet ski, and kind of like switching back and forth on riding and driving it. Towards the end, we had like about 20 minutes left on our rental time before we needed to go back to the pier. So we had kind of like ridden back into the intercoastal waterway and had some time to kill. And I decided that I would see how it is to do donuts on a jet ski, which is a good idea until you realize you're like slowly tilting more and more to the same side because you're just like leaning in, doing donuts, and
There's not really any ground to stop you there, sir.
Yeah. So it's just like every time you go around that loop, you're like leaning further and further in, which means that the jet ski then begins to take on a little bit of water and get heavier on that side, and it eventually will flip and roll everybody on the jet ski off into the water. Which happened, and that was not on a sandbar, which means that required some swimming to go catch the thing and like get back on it. But hey, that's what life jackets are for, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. You guys jet ski enthusiasts at all?
I've always wanted to ride one, but I never have. But not because of Wave Race 64, but rather because I believe it was one of the Police Academy movies.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we'll have to maybe we'll have to link up somewhere and go riding on them sometime. They're super easy to drive and get down, and it's like one of those extreme sports that to me is really appealing because I'm not gonna die doing it. Like even if I'm going like super fast and throw myself off of it, I'm landing in water.
Yeah, you might hurt yourself a little bit, smacking against that water.
I think I have somewhere here, you probably can't see it, but I definitely have a bruise from when I fell off of it, like kind of smacking on the side of it a little bit. But yeah, it's all good. It was totally worth it. So next up on the show, we always have a little section before we go where we provide some advice for the week for the listeners, and that is the segment where we call in our friendly neighborhood StarCraft medic and call the doctor. So I don't know, do you guys have any advice or tips for the listeners this week? Because I think if not, I can offer some Fire Emblem tips.
Do you have anything, Nick?
I mean, since we're on the topic of Fire Emblem, I did play that game, and I know, Josh there, you haven't jumped into Lunatic mode yet, so I can give some advice for Lunatic.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I played like the harder difficulty with permadeath on, but I did not go as far as Lunatic mode.
So in Lunatic mode, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know what Josh did, but Frederick is a boss, and he's a tank. So at least for the first 3 or 4 chapters, you're doing all of your work with Frederick. He's the only guy that can take a hit. So the advice would be to get every other character out of the line of fire of the enemy team. Just move them all away. Give Frederick all of their healing items and power weapons, and just send him in to go and just do work. And I recommend getting him to a safe house as soon as possible on the map, because that'll significantly increase your chances of survival, because the enemies will either miss a lot more, do a lot less damage, or any of that. So he'll last a lot longer in them safe houses. And half the time, you don't even need to fight. Just heal, and then let them all come to you and attack you, and then heal again, and your counters will actually kill off most of the enemy team. And that's how you navigate your way through the first few chapters. Just get everybody else out of the way. And you can even pair Frederick up with somebody else like Sully or anybody else. Just have him as the front runner. That's the only way I was able to get through any of the chapters in Lunatic in the beginning. So that would be my advice. Use Frederick and no one else, and grind your way up levels. And once you get to chapter 5 or 6, then you can use some of these levels to grind and get Crom and Robin and your other guys up to a high enough level to survive.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the kind of the safe areas on the map. That's one thing I didn't bring up earlier is that the terrain on the map is treated differently by different characters. Some characters move differently over various terrains than others, especially like the cavalry units. Like I think actually Frederick starts out as a cavalier. Um, they move a further move space distance, and they travel over rough terrain more so than some of the other characters. And then you have wooded areas, you have forts, and like all these different places on the map that do give you bonuses. So if you like move a character onto a fort square, they have +1 to defense. They may get some range added to their attack, that kind of thing. And then also there are like staircases in a lot of the later maps where enemies will come up or reinforcements will come up, and if you stick one of your weaker characters back from the battle and just like sit them on those staircases, that'll prevent those reinforcements from coming up behind you because they can't get up the stairs and spawn on that spot. That was one thing that I also found helpful. The other thing that I found in later levels that actually worked really well is early on in a mission to play defensively and kind of create a phalanx out of your characters. So I would actually use those relationship values. So when you select a character, you can see if they have like an A, B, C, or even S for some of them, which is better than A, relationship with that character. And you want to position those characters side by side on the grid squares on the map because then they get bonuses from each other. There are also other characters who just have passive skills where they provide bonuses to characters within like 3 spaces of them and things like that. There are characters who have like a rally ability, which will give like +4 to luck or +4 to resistance to all characters within a certain amount of squares of them. So I really would just like kind of cluster up, get everybody like overlapping bonuses over each other, and then cast rally a bunch of times with all the characters who had that. And then just let the enemies like kind of rush in towards me and play defensively and use nothing but counterattacks to like clear out a large section of the initial set of enemies. And then I was like free to like spread out a little bit more on the map and send squads out attacking the enemies because when it's the enemy's turn, therefore they're not going to have as many characters to come and maybe wear a character down all the way to 0 HP and kill them off. They may only be able to get them down to like 5 or 10 HP, and I'll have a chance to use a potion or a healing spell on my next turn. So that would be my like big piece of advice late game. Play defensively and overlap those relationship values with each of the characters and those passive skills, so that you can, for the enemies that are going to rush you, you can take those out really quickly just with counterattacks and then spread out and do the mission.
Good advice.
Awesome. Yeah, all right. Well, we're running a little long today, but thanks to everybody for listening and all of the live viewers who tuned in. You can give us feedback and send your questions in for the show at worldmapcast@gmail.com. And you can listen to the show each week here live on the Google Hangout on air. The live video also gets archived to our YouTube. You can search for the World Map Podcast and find it there. Our website is worldmapcast.com. All the past episodes are up there. You can listen to them right in your browser. Or if you, like most people probably do, listen to podcasts in iTunes or Stitcher, you can subscribe to the show there. Make sure you go on there and give us a 5-star review if you're doing that. Seeing the downloads tick up a little bit each week, so I know folks are listening. And some of you are listening and not reviewing. So bad on you. Go do that. Go review us. Give us 5 stars, and we'll love you forever. You can check us out also on Facebook and Twitter. We're World Mapcast on those social media channels. And just tell a friend about the show. And that will do us for this time. So until next time, what do you think we're going to do, guys?
I don't know, Nick. What do you think?
It's probably got something to do with deli meat. I think this time we could pop some smoke.
Oh, we could. Well, or we could smoke some deli meat.
Both.
All right. Until next time, we're smoking deli meat.